Well, when the news broke of Kash Patel being the new FBI director under the new Trump administration, I wanted to check in on former FBI agents who called out the corruption, the rot inside of the agency, FBI whistleblowers who we had here on the show and whom we hold in such high regard. One of those individuals is Kyle Seraphin, former FBI whistleblower, recovering FBI agent, podcast host. And as soon as this news broke, I jumped on to X to see what Kyle was saying and said, "We're back, baby. We're back. Welcome to the party, Kash Patel." And it seemed like there was some excitement there, and perhaps, sunny skies are back again. So we wanted to ask Kyle to join us here on the show. Kyle, welcome back to the show. Great to see you.
Thanks for having me on, Clayton. I'm excited.
So you're excited. This weekend, this news broke. I mean, I think we were all collectively who've been following this story and know about the corruption inside the agency and this man's work. We're all sort of collectively excited. What was your sort of immediate response to seeing that Kash Patel had been chosen?
I think that the story arc, if you had tried to pitch this to a movie producer of my life story, which is that I joined the FBI in 2016, I got thrown out of the FBI. I actually was kicked out Thanksgiving, November 2021. I was told I couldn't come back into the office over COVID mandates, and I wouldn't put, a swab up my nose. And so going back to that time, which is only 3 years ago, that story arc has gone from being a guy in Las Cruces, New Mexico, who was a federal whistleblower and brought things to Congress, got kicked out of the Bureau, was attacked by the Bureau, has been investigated by the FBI, had Elon Musk and X Corporation go and defend me and the subpoenas that the FBI has gone after to try to jam me up, to knowing the next FBI director on a first name basis. That's an absurd story, and that doesn't probably sell in any Hollywood setting. I just don't know that anybody, they'd go, "This is stupid, it's illogical, and it doesn't make any sense." So I have a lot of sense that there's a kind of God's hand in the world that we're seeing here. My buddies are much more optimistic today than they were a week ago. And even the Trump win has been sort of difficult to process because it changes everything. It throws it all on its head. It puts an agency that has been targeting Americans, on the back foot now. And now it is trying to figure out how it's going to survive after all the things that it's been doing for the last 4 years.
Over the past few years, we've seen these unbelievable videos of FBI agents come to people's houses over social media posts. I mean, it's been stunning. It's the targeting targeting of Americans at prayer meetings and so forth in church basements. It's been absolutely absurd. There's been so much corruption and rot inside the agency. And there are reports over the past few days now that, after this announcement of Kash Patel, there's going to be a mass exodus. There's a lot of people leaving the agency or sort of mass quitting. Are you hearing that from your sources inside the FBI, that there are a lot of people that are just like scared now and they're just going to get out?
There's two pieces. There's two factions inside the FBI. I say there's probably three. There are people that are on the right that are relatively politically aware. There are people on the left that are politically aware and active. And then there are people in the middle that just wanted to do the job. And what I'm hearing is the people on the right are excited. That makes sense. The people on the left are terrified. The people that are working in the headquarters units, whether they be in the intelligence end of things or whether they be actual sworn agents, absolutely worried about the future of the agency and what they're going to be able to do. And then I've also been getting this rumbling from folks who are the brick agents. Brick agents are what the media likes to call rank and file. There's no such thing as rank and file because there's no rank and there's no file. The FBI has people that work the job. They are the people that are out on the bricks and knocking on doors and doing the work. And they signed up to be FBI agents and to investigate crimes and not to jam up Americans over politics. And those people, especially the ones that haven't been doing that, have been resisting it and pushing back in their own ways very quietly without much fanfare, are excited. They're excited about getting back to the mission that they signed up to do. And I think there's this swell, kind of a quiet, probably not a majority, but a strong minority of people within the Bureau that are hoping that they get to do the job that they signed up to do, that they did for a while, that has been subverted, much to their chagrin. And now they're getting maybe a chance to renew that as they end, and maybe they can actually retire from an agency that is credible and has the respect that it used to have.
Yeah, that's a tall order. So I wanted to ask you that. How difficult will it be to restore that? I mean, I can remember 1999, 2000 being at University of Pittsburgh and thinking maybe, love the X-Files. Like maybe that would be a career path I'd like to go into. Do some great work. Help the American people do something. Maybe that's something I'd want to do. In the end, I became a journalist instead. But there was a prestige there, I think, in a lot of ways. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm just being naive. But what kind of tall order is Kash going to face trying to restore the prestige of this agency?
Well, it's a big animal. The FBI is not monolithic, so that's one of the other kind of difficult things. We're talking about 55 different divisions, which are a lot like fiefdoms or little principalities that are run by a senior agent known as the special agent in charge. So you've got a bunch of these, they're senior executives. You've got the actual headquarters beast, which is a monster. And so it's a multi-headed, multi-tentacled animal that needs to be wrangled in. And the org chart is also equally complex. But there are basically 5 branches within the FBI that need to be wrangled. There are plans to be able to handle that. And I've contributed some, I hope, at least some awareness of what that problem looks like. What he ends up doing is going to be his decision, obviously. And he's got lots of good advisors sharing how big this animal is. But it's not going to be an overnight fix. And anyone who thinks he's going to go in, and I know he said it kind of flippantly on the Sean Ryan show, saying, we're going to go in on day 1, we shut down FBI headquarters. And, day 2, the Hoover Building is a deep state memorial or museum. Right, and that's not realistic in government. I think that he was setting a sort of a tone as opposed to an actual policy. You've got 5 branches. They need to be wrangled individually. They each bring their own challenges. Some of them need to be disbanded completely, like probably the intelligence branch is a antithetical piece of an FBI sort of law enforcement mission. You need to have the counterterrorism mission focus on real counterterrorism and the actual threats that face our homeland, which are real and they exist. And the Biden administration made it worse by leaving a border open. I think that in the first year of the Trump administration, we're going to see something really scary, which is that we had a kind of an open gate, allowing sort of the Trojan horses to sneak in. And I don't think that any of these people had the instinct that they were on a timeline to be able to execute whatever plans they might have. And so January 20th onward, when the gate closes and the border policy changes, the FBI's real mission of counterterrorism is going to be in stark focus, because all of the failures of 4 years prior and all of that opportunity cost of focusing on parrots at school boards or investigating Catholics for white supremacy or whatever other nonsense they were doing, and there was plenty of it, pro-lifers and praying and all this kind of thing, that is now going to be immediately has to be refocused. And it has to be pointed at the actual problem, which is that we have tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of unknowns. And that means that there are hundreds, if not thousands, of potential real threats that brought capabilities into this country that shouldn't have been here. So that's going to be the thing that they have to be able to turn. So you've got to do 2 things. You've got to stop the rot. You've got to stop the corruption. And you have to not fail at the no-fail mission of keeping Americans safe from the things that they expect the FBI is actually doing. And that's a tall order. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be an uphill battle. It's a multi-person fight. And then the last thing is watching out that he doesn't get stabbed in the back from the inside, because there are plenty of loyalists to what we call the institution over the Constitution. They think that their loyalty is to the FBI. And guys like me and my friend Steve Friend and my buddy Garrett O'Boyle and many others that are in sort of our little suspendables network, we all understood that that was the problem. There are other loyalists to the Constitution that are still within the Bureau, but making sure that we can kind of identify them, move them into positions. And you're going to see something that's a cultural change, I hope. I hope that what they'll do is say, you don't need 15 years worth of garbage management experience in the FBI, because that entire culture is rotted. They've been promoting people that went along to get along, that were sort of yes men's. The joke that my buddies and I talk about is a GS-15 at the FBI is someone who's never said no to a bad idea. And then anybody beyond that, that's the top of the government scale. When they get into the SES, they obviously never said no. That's how you got to those positions. And that's why we had COVID tyranny. That's why we had sort of the priorities against things that are antithetical to the First Amendment. If that's the case, there's a lot of rot. And at the same time, there's a real mission that has to be carried out. It's a tall order. I think Kash is the guy to do it, though. He's got a unique background among any of the last 3 or 4 FBI directors that have been out there. He's seen more, done more, and he demonstrates more capabilities, in my opinion.
Yeah, John Bolton, warmonger John Bolton, coming out saying that this is a terrible decision. You've had, CNN, of course, MSNBC, all saying that this is a terrible decision to put Kash Patel. When I hear those things, my immediate response is, wow, you're on the right track. When John Bolton is critical, then you've made the right choice.
That's a ringing endorsement. Yeah, Andy McCabe is terrified. Yeah, so one of the things that I know is Andy McCabe, he came up in the New York field office for the FBI, which is really the most prominent of the FBI offices, the second being the Washington field office. And the story is that he was kind of a generic guy. He looks like a bureau guy. And there were other people named Andy, and they were white guys that looked like Andy McCabe. And the joke was, any Andy will do for the things that they needed him to do. He was not just special or unique. He was a guy that said yes and climbed into the management track and went up and did that. When he's crying on CNN, I want to make that my nightly toast is McCabe tears and this new guy Daniel Brunner who's popped up, who's basically operates as an FBI agent for his whole life, then became somebody who's a government contractor doing the same job. This cozy relationship between the bureau and private industry, letting people go into security, that is the rot. That is what the deep state looks like. Is that they found homes for their buddies. They found like a way to capture industrial security, whether it be for the military industrial complex, the Raytheons, the General Electrics. They all find cush jobs. And now more recently in the media spaces, they're going into tech and media. So getting rid of that culture would be great. And having them just serve the American people again would be kind of a nice change.
I'll get you out of here on this, Kyle. Of course, you know Kash Patel's deep history, one of 8 people responsible for uncovering the Russia collusion hoax and exposing that. Without Kash Patel, it's likely we might not know about that at all. And the spying that the Obama administration did on the Trump transition team, of course, and the administration was absolutely terrible and one of the greatest scandals, I think, in American history. How transparent do you think Kash will be with, say, JFK files, corruption within the Biden administration? Do you think that we're going to see a lot of open and sort of open the books moves from Kash Patel to the American people on some of these big stories?
Well, he's been out on potting this for the last couple of years, and in some ways he's been auditioning for this job. I have privately been hoping, kind of against hope, that he would get the nomination for the job as well. Not because of the things that he's been saying on podcasts, but because I just think he's a really good person. He's stepped up and done things to help out me, my family, and my buddies that nobody will hear about because he's very private about being a good human being. And a good human being looks at what the American people want to know and say, hey, these secrets belong to Americans. They're not going to compromise sources and methods. You're not going to compromise something from the 1960s and a 1963 operation that the CIA may or may not have been involved in. So how about we just open the books? He's been saying it. He says that there should be a 24/7, running declassification office that constantly reveals it. The other thing that we pushed at, and I think he's sympathetic to, is that there needs to be real transparency in the FOIA process, which any journalist who's ever dealt with it realizes how frustrating it is that the law is written in one way, and then the reality is a completely different thing. They don't actually operate in the spirit of the law. They find these technicalities and letters to hide behind. So I think he does have the instinct that Americans are looking for a real change. He's a regular guy. I hate to say it, but he's kind of like, he's a bro. He's a dude. He's a guy that you go and have a beer with, and it's not a fancy beer, and it's not a beer that other people can't afford. When I sat down with him at a Turning Point event, he bought me a Coors Light. I don't even drink Coors Light. But he's a regular person in the way that that Chris Wray is not. Chris Wray made $9.5 million or $9.3 million before he became the FBI director and already thought of himself as sort of a political prince. Kash wears a T-shirt when he can. And I think that is a decidedly special change for the Americans. The last piece of it is he's also seen it from the public defender side of the coin, which is the other side of the legal system that so many Americans now after January 6th are more familiar with and are more empathetic to than previously. I think most conservatives probably didn't look at the legal system as a thing that needed to be wrangled in the same way, because they looked at it and they said, well, if you're on the wrong side of the law, you probably deserve it. And now we have this new moment in time, and it may be the gift, the silver lining of all the evil that January 6th prosecutions brought about, which is that people are empathetic in a way that they weren't previously. And having a former public defender who actually saw that as well, I think it's a special moment. I mean, I can't believe the left is upset about the first Indian American man taking over. He's the first non-white guy to take over the FBI. They should be cheering it if they actually believe in diversity and his background. But
well, it's great to hear from you, Kyle, and I share your enthusiasm on this, and I think this is a great day for the likes of you and other suspendables out there who put country first and who were raked through the coals as a result of it. Thank you so much, Kyle. Great to see you and really appreciate it.
Yeah, it's been my pleasure.